Hi friends, welcome back to Quiet Time. Are you ready to read chapter 3? All right, let's take a peek, see how long this chapter is. Oh, it's another short one. You ready? Okay, chapter 3 on page 19. Hamster on a roll. I learned a lot about human behavior during my first 7 months in room 26. Humans can be funny, sad, happy, and mad all in one day. But the person I can't quite understand is Mrs. Brisbane. Just when I think I've figured her out, she does something she's never ever done before. For instance, every single morning she comes into the classroom, puts her books on her desk and her purse in her desk drawer, checks her hair in the mirror, then walks toward the window and says, "Good morning, fellows. Here's hoping for another great day." I always tell her that I'm sure it will be unsqueakably great, and Og sometimes answers with his goofy boing. But on Tuesday, for the first time all year, she came into the room, dumped her books on the desk, put her purse in her drawer, and slammed it shut. Then she walked over to the bulletin board and stared at the cutouts of the planets that were up. "I wonder how many bulletin boards I've put up and taken down over the years," she asked. Ooh. I hope she wasn't asking me because I didn't have an exact answer. I did know that Mrs. Brisbane had been teaching for many years, so the answer would be lots. She shook her head and began taking down the cutout pictures of planets with interesting names like Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn. Then there was Mars, which is an angry-looking red color with spots on it that look like big, scary eyes, especially at night. I wasn't sorry to see that picture go. The bulletin board was empty by the time the students started streaming in. For months, they'd come in bundled up in coats and boots, hats and gloves. Now they had on light jackets and sweaters, and it didn't take long for them to hang their things in the cloakroom and hurry to their seats. I heard that Kirk came bounding into the room with a big smile on his face. "Mrs. Brisbane, I'm sorry about yesterday. To make up for it, I have a surprise for Humphrey. Can I give it to him now?" "A surprise? For me?" That got my whiskers wiggling. And it started Gail giggling. "What is it?" she said. "Let me see." Soon the other students were gathered around Kirk, begging him to let them see the surprise. "Okay, Kirk, what is it?" Mrs. Brisbane asked. Her arms were folded. She had a suspicious look on her face. That means she's thinking, is this really a surprise for Humphrey, or is this another one of Kirk's jokes? After all, Kirk had done a few things that would make any teacher unhappy. Once, he put a cushion on Repeat It Please Richie's chair that made a very, very, very rude noise when Richie sat on it. He called it a whoopee cushion. My friends laughed so hard, including Richie. They all wanted a chance to sit on it, but Mrs. Brisbane took it away and made Kirk sit in the cloakroom for a while. This time, Mrs. Brisbane held out her hand. "Let me see it, Kirk," she said. Boy, she sure didn't trust him. Kirk reached in his backpack and pulled out something I couldn't see. All of my friends went, "Ooh," and "ah," which made my heart thump faster and faster. "Can you see it, Og?" I squeaked to my table mate. There was no answer. "It's a hamster ball. We can put Humphrey inside and he can roll around the classroom. See, there's air holes. It's good exercise," Kurt explained. "Can we try it?" The thought of rolling around the classroom during the day was so exciting. I climbed up on my ladder to get a closer look. Mrs. Brisbane held a clear yellow ball in her hand. "Well," she says, "I suppose it would be nice for Humphrey, but we have to be careful that we don't step on him or that he doesn't roll to someplace dangerous." My friends all cheered and I joined in. Og started splashing, so I knew he approved. "And we can't let this interfere with our schoolwork. Testing is coming up, you know." Mrs. Brisbane said it with a frown. Kirk had already opened my cage. "Don't hurt him," said Golden Miranda, who's always looking out for me. Kirk placed me in the ball, then snapped the top shut. "Make sure it's closed tightly, please," Speak Up Saya said softly. She was shy, but she always looked out for me too. It was kind of weird being enclosed in a round object. Since it was yellow plastic, the world looked yellow to me, and Miranda was more golden than ever. I checked to see that there were holes in the plastic. Yes, 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 I wouldn't have trouble breathing. Careful now, warned Mrs. Brisbane as Kirk set the ball on the floor of the classroom. My fellow students crouched down to watch. Go on, Humphrey Dumpty, AJ said. Make the ball go. Let me tell you, it's very strange to be inside a ball. For one thing, there's nothing flat to stand on, like a floor. So even standing still, the ball felt wobbly. Run, Humphrey said Seth. Get it moving. I hesitated for a little bit, but when I heard Og go boing, I knew I had to move. I went slowly at first, just taking tiny steps. My friends moved back to give me room to roll down the center aisle. Go, Humphrey, go, said Kirk. I jogged a little faster. Go, Humphrey, go, the other students chanted. Go, go, go. I liked the encouragement, and I liked the feeling of going fast, so I began to run. It was like spinning on my wheel, only this time I was actually going somewhere. Many times before, I'd scurried across the floor of the classroom, but never when the other students were there. As I zoomed down the aisles between the tables and chairs, my friends followed me. The bell rang, which meant school had begun, but once I got rolling, I didn't know how to stop. As much fun as the hamster ball was, it was scary, scary, scary too, because I couldn't control where I was going. I heard Mrs. Brisbane say, "Class, we need to begin our work," but I was on a roll, heading right for the wall. Someone gasped. I think it was Miranda. "He'll crash," she said. "Stop him." I tried to slow down, but it was too late. The ball bounced off the wall and shot back toward the aisle. I was now upside down, and before I could get back on my feet, I came to a stop that was so sudden I did a double flip inside the ball. I looked up and saw a very large foot in a sensible black shoe. It was Mrs. Brisbane's foot. "Class, I want you all in your seats. Take out a sheet of paper for the dictionary drill. I'll take attendance while you get started." I was catching my breath when she leaned down over me. "And you, young man, will settle down." When Mrs. Brisbane talks like that, nobody argues with her, especially not a small golden hamster enclosed in a ball. Once she removed her foot, I cautiously headed back down the center aisle between the desks. Mrs. Brisbane kept a close eye on me while my friends took the test. Usually, I took the test along with them, writing the answers in my notebook, but I was enjoying my freedom a little too much for that. I kept on jogging up and down the center aisle, but now I was careful to slow to a stop before hitting a wall. That way, I just tapped it, rolled backwards, then turned my body inside the ball and jogged towards the opposite wall again. My friends wrote quietly while Mrs. Brisbane gave out the words. I tried not to make too much noise as I sailed past Mandy's shiny red shoes, Art's black high tops, and Garth's scuffed white sneakers. "Sit still, Seth's feet tap, tap, tapped as he wrote. I don't know how many times I went back and forth, but it was getting a little boring. If only I could turn the thing. After the test papers were collected, Mrs. Brisbane said it was time to finish the spring into numbers project. I think my friends forgot about me while they cut and pasted, colored, and stapled their papers. By recess time, room 26 looked completely different. The bulletin board was covered in cutouts with flowers, rabbits, and robins, but they all had math problems on them, plus and minus numbers. Multiplying and dividing problems peeked out from the leaves of the blossoms and ran up and down the rabbit ears and robin wings. Tabitha and Richie made clouds in all kinds of shapes, even triangles and squares. Gail and Saya tacked a row of colorful flowers all around the chalkboard. There was a pattern to the colors, and it took me a while to figure it out. Garth and AJ made huge kites with long, long, long tails that had long, long, long problems on it. I began to jog with joy. Spring was bright. Spring was happy. Spring was fun. While Mrs. Brisbane helped hang the kite, I suddenly hit the leg of Seth's desk and veered off toward the door, which I opened to let in the spring breeze. I sailed out of room 26, and not one of my friends noticed. "Help! Help! Help!" I squeaked in the distance. I heard Og's boing, but everything was completely silent in the hall. As I rolled out of room 26 toward the side door, I wondered if I'd end up on the playground again. I frantically tried to guide the ball away from the door, but it wouldn't turn quickly enough. Luckily, the door was closed tightly, so I bounced off of it. Now I was heading toward another door. It was far, far, far away, past a long row of classrooms. Suddenly, I wished Aldo hadn't polished the floor quite so well. I also wished the hamster ball had brakes. The best I could do to slow it down was to stop moving my legs. What an unspeakably dangerous situation for a small hamster. At least my cage had the lock that doesn't lock. But there was no way for me to get out of this ball. "Goodbye, room 26, I squeaked. "Guys, where's Humphrey going?" Suddenly, I heard a piercingly loud noise. Hamsters are very sensitive creatures, and we don't appreciate loud noises. "Stop right there," a firm voice ordered me. A voice firmly ordered me. The ball stopped abruptly, and this time I did a triple flip, but I recognized the voice and the shrill sound. It was Mrs. Wright and her whistle. She was standing directly in front of me with one of her huge white puffy shoes resting on the top of my ball. This is the last page, friends. Just for fun, I guess she blew her whistle again. "Mrs. Brisbane," she bellowed. Mrs. Brisbane rushed out to the hallway and hurried towards us. "What's wrong, Mrs. Wright?" That sounded funny, but I wasn't in the mood to laugh. I was afraid Mrs. Wright might blow her whistle again. "I just happened to be coming down the hall when I found your rat out here." "For goodness sake," Mrs. Brisbane leaned down and picked up the ball. "How did you get out here?" "You created a very dangerous situation," said Mrs. Wright. "Someone could have tripped over him and gotten hurt." "Well, no one did," said Mrs. Brisbane. "Don't worry about it. It won't happen again." Mrs. Wright sniffed loudly. "Still, I must report it to Mr. Morales." "Do whatever you think you should." Mrs. Brisbane sounded a little snippy, and I was glad. "Come on, Humphrey." My classmates gathered at the door, waiting for my return. "Back in your seats," Mrs. Brisbane told them. "And you, Humphrey, are going back in your cage." I was so happy to be home. I took a long drink of water, then headed straight for my sleeping hut and a nice long doze. The definition at the end of this book is for whistle. A shiny device that when someone blows in it makes ear-splitting sounds that can seriously hurt the delicate ears of a small creature like hamsters. Use whistles sparingly, if at all. Some humans can whistle without a device, but hamsters never can. Humphrey's Dictionary of Wonderful Words. All right, friends, we will read chapter 4 tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest. I'll talk to you later. Bye.